interview time on the channel. Sands interview. So we got Sands here with us today on the channel on Who Daily. First time on, first guest ever. What do you think about that, Sands?
It's awesome.
Yeah, right.
I'm honored.
I got some big guests coming up. You know what I mean? I'm a heavy hitter when it comes to having guests on the channel. I'm gonna try to make it. I really like the vibe, by the way, of like just the whole Bengals community, especially on Twitter, kind of coming together in ways that I don't ever remember it happening. I think it's a really cool time. That all kind of culminated, I guess, not really culminated, but there was kind of a celebration of that yesterday, right? The release of the new uniforms. Second time in my life that they've got new ones that I remember anyway. And same kind of scenario, right? Like you have your second year quarterback, everybody's rallying behind him. Same thing happened with Dalton when they had their last new jerseys coming out. Not as much excitement. I don't remember as much excitement around that one, around that squad as this squad. But we were kind of chatting a little bit before we jumped on. You don't have very many Bengals jerseys, right? So I think that might have to change, huh?
Yeah, I've only got, I'm only 25, but I have Chad Johnson jersey that obviously favorite player. I think he was like everybody's favorite player at that time. I also really loved Willie Anderson and Bobby Williams, but they didn't have jerseys for those two, at least where I am. And you couldn't really order online really back then. At least I didn't know how to. And then I have AJ Green Color Rush and this Burrow jersey. So mostly I like to wait until a player is like re-signed. Like I really want to get a Bates jersey, but I don't want to be the bad luck that causes him to leave. Because I wanted to get a Lawson jersey last year. I was like, I'll wait. Didn't re-sign.
Yeah, I think Burrow's a safe one. If you're gonna get
quarterbacks are usually safe. They usually stay.
That's right.
Yeah, the weirdest thing I have is a Terrell Owens shirt from his 1 year with us.
A t-shirt jersey, yeah. You didn't want to go all in. He was not going to be around very long anyway, right? So, no, I get it. Cool, man. Let's jump into maybe the next TO, right? But this time it's Ja'Marr Chase. I was going through your Twitter feed. I know that there's this whole thing on the channel here. Everybody knows that I'm basically of the opinion that there are three really, really, really good options for the Bengals to pick here. The only way I would be upset is if they went outside of those three. They could pick any three of these guys, Chase, Pitts, or Sewell, and I would be ecstatic about that. I think that all three of them are very, very good players. If they did something weird and went outside of that, then I would have to that would give me fits. But let's start. I like the way you have it broken down on your channel, where you have on your feed, where you have kind of it all linked and pinned right on one tweet and kind of scroll through it. That was really cool. First one I kind of wanted to run through is Ja'Marr Chase, and you have actually something that you don't hear a lot of unless you tune into like the Bengals Civil War stuff, which is negatives about any of these three, right? Like I feel like
I gave negatives for all three.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I'm saying.
I agree with you that they are the three. I didn't scout Trevor Lawrence because we have our quarterback, and that's kind of a waste of time for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I go in depth. I do 5 full games with these guys, and it's kind of the off season, so I like to chill a little bit more than in season. But I still want to do this. And then, but yeah, I have negatives for all three, but I think all three are elite prospects, and I think any of those three would be awesome. So before I give any negatives or who I would pick or anything, it's just I'm happy with any of them.
Yeah,
so.
No, yeah, for sure. What I wanted to talk about, because like I do this similar thing. I watch probably no more than 5-6 games of each of the kind of the and I usually only do it for first round prospects. It's not to say that I'm a pro, but I kind of give my opinions, and people are free to say, "Hey, Mike, you're full of shit." That's fine with me. But I just kind of like to get it out there. Again, maybe I'm seeing stuff that people who are less experienced can't see or haven't seen, right? And they get their knowledge builds up a little bit, just kind of building the knowledge of the fan base, So I don't like the idea of, hey, if you don't know what you're doing, don't try to comment on film. No, dude, watch it. The only way to get better at it is to do it, right?
Yeah, and everybody and their grandma can see how some people are good. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, you have to have a special lack of, I don't know, awareness to not see like this guy's like Aaron Donald or somebody. Yeah, he's good. Like you could see that if you knew nothing about football. He's just throwing guys all over the field.
Yeah, and it's like elite traits show up on college football fields, no matter where they're playing. I was really funny, kind of leading up until Jamar Chase did his pro day. I saw a lot of kind of slander out there about him being slow, and I was like, "Are you guys watching the same film I'm watching?" I was glad he ran that. If he put that time up, I don't know how much I trust it, but he's at least running it's somewhere around a 4.35 to a 4.4, and it's like, God, I'm glad he did that, because if it would have been anything over a 4.4, people would have just, well, that's it, it's over, we can't draft him, that kind of thing. But like I said, I was watching, I was like, he doesn't seem to have any problems getting open, you know what I mean? So I don't know what people are seeing that makes him slow. Tell me some of the things you saw, though. I just saw that you said, I noted you had some issues with his route running, specifically on spacing and kind of keeping his routes spaced properly depending on the defense he was seeing, and then also kind of issues with press every once in a while.
Yeah, so the main two issues I saw with him, well, there's the obvious one where he's about 6 foot flat, and you obviously want your wide receivers being 6'2", 6'3". So not the end of the world. DeAndre Hopkins is 6'1". I mean, a lot of guys are. Devontae Adams, I think, is 6'1", which are 1 inch taller. It's not a big difference.
Justin Jefferson, same team just from last year. He's 6'1", I think.
Mm-hmm. So it's obviously a little bit of a negative, and then you combine that. There's just refinement things that I think he could work on. His release, while I think he has the flashy, when he wins big.
Mm-hmm.
There's that play I think a lot of people have seen. It was against Trevon Diggs, who was a 2nd-round pick for the Cowboys, where he just throws him to the side and sprints by him.
Yeah.
But then you see some reps against players like Noah Igbenogany and Jeff Gladney kind of were able to hit him right in the chest, because he doesn't do a great job of keeping his hands up to protect it. That's really it's just a nuanced thing. Most of the time it's going to be fine, but when it gets to cornerbacks who are very experienced and good at their press jam technique, they might be able to throw him off his route. And then with his routes in general, I think he kind of drifts a little bit and rounds them. There's a somewhat famous clinic with PJ Fleck, who's the head coach for Minnesota, and he's a big wide receiver guy. That's what he did before he became the head coach. He coached a lot of wide receivers and offense. And he says, when you turn your head first, it causes you to drift a little bit off of where your route's supposed to go. And when you watch somebody like Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs or Devontae Adams, they're always turning their body. Even Chad, watch him back in the day, he turned his body and then his head.
Yeah, maybe the best I've ever seen, Chad Johnson.
Oh, absolutely. When it comes to release and route running.
Oh, and the idea that did you see TJ on Cowherd last week? Come on, dude. You must not. There's never been a more obvious tell that this dude has never watched a single snap of the Bengals outside of a promo reel, than saying that Chad Johnson doesn't run good routes. Get straight to jail. Get out of here. I agree with you. Whenever I watch, he is splashy, right? But I do chalk that up. I think, to age. This is a dude who won pretty much in his sleep, probably in high school. He didn't even really have to try. And then, whenever you go from high school and you go as an 18-year-old to a college practice field and you win with those same things that were working in high school, it's tough to convince you to do anything else. Why? It's still working. So I think that there's the age thing, and then there's also the corners that I saw that gave him problems were long man corners. So corners that can play bump coverage without getting smoked, that are long enough to reach out and get a hand on his arms. And I think that, I played a little receiver back in the day in high school, back in my day, and I'm a little guy. I'm only 5'8", so I know that, there are ways to combat that. It just takes handwork, right? And it looks like he's never ever really done a lot of technical handwork of making sure you keep hands off of your chest, right? The great thing about that is I know that that's teachable. It's a matter of if he's picks it up fast enough to be able to use it early on, right? The other thing about the route running, I see that too. And I do think that sometimes it's a matter of him thinking he can get to places that he can't quite get to fast enough, right? And you'll see that. That's also, a lot of the same kind of negatives I see with Chase as a wide receiver, I see with Sewell as a lineman.
It's a little bit. Neither one are bad technicians,
Right.
but they just need a little bit of refinement.
Yeah.
And I think that's something with both of them that people go too far. Where somebody will say like Sewell's got bad technique. No, he's got a couple things he needs to work on a little bit, but it's nothing drastic. And same with Chase. Like Chase doesn't have bad release technique. He doesn't have bad route running. It's just a few things that will take him from pretty good to elite.
Yeah, let's keep rolling with Sewell. He just kind of misses or sometimes chooses poor aiming points, especially when he's getting in space on the run blocking. That's pretty obvious to me. He looks like a bull in a china shop, but sometimes he misses, right? And it's just like, it looks bad too, because he's really like, you know, steaming at somebody and then misses, and it's like, how did you? It's like when you're playing Madden, you got a blocker who just runs the other way of the guy, and the guy just tackled. You're like, where are you going? You know, it's like
it's especially at the linebackers when he misses a linebacker and he can just look like he completely whiffs. And most offensive linemen in college are going to do that. They want to get the highlight, big, put him on his back block.
The Quentin Nelson block.
Yeah, the Quentin Nelson block.
Yeah, I see that too, and to me again, like, I like that. I would rather you be over aggressive and miss sometimes than be tentative and get knocked back a lot. You know what I mean? Like, if those are the two options.
Mm-hmm. Easier to hone it in than it is to try to get some guy to start playing like that.
Exactly. There was a couple of reps I saw that you highlighted from him where some really strong, some of the stronger defensive interior players that he ended up having to block occasionally could and frequently did kind of stand him up, right? But it wasn't like I was seeing him getting beat as much as he wasn't dominating like you're used to watching, right?
It was, Derek Brown specifically was able to, he's 330, 40-pound dude, so the same size as Sewell.
Right.
And he was able to take Sewell's hit or block, and whenever Sewell got the initial block and didn't move him at all, instead of staying low and trying to drive like that, he kind of started getting high. And whenever you start playing high, that allows players to disengage from you.
I wanted to get to the other guy I want to talk about because he's the only other guy that anybody ever talks about at 5. And that's Kyle Pitts. And I don't know if you had a chance. I had a video last week talking about Kyle Pitts. It was titled "Kyle Pitts can do everything you could want out of a tight end." And I kind of went through and broke some of that stuff down. Your only concern with him was also my only concern, and that's only because it's not completely obvious to me that technique-wise he knows what he's doing when he's blocking, but he tends to at least stay in the way of guys.
Yeah. He's doing what I think Travis Kelce did for a lot of his career. It's just as a tight end, you don't win your block. You just kind of die slowly.
Yeah. We just beg for the whistle, right? Yeah. Kyle Pitts is a monster, man. Like he's. I don't think they'll draft. I think that the consensus is rounding into, hey, they're taking Jamar Chase. Like, I don't know how much I believe that. I've been through enough Bengals drafts to know, don't assume that you know who they're going to take. Just don't do that, because you'll get, a lot of times you'll get disappointed. But what I want to kind of move on to, we just talked about kind of Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell's kind of weaknesses, right? Among those weaknesses we just talked about, what do you see, which one of them do you see as being easier to fix quickly so that so that we can maybe not see those mistakes at the NFL level?
That's interesting. I haven't really thought about this. I think they're honestly about the same. I think they're both refinement things with technique. Neither one is going to be super difficult to fix, I don't think. And I think what it really would come down to is just, to me, which position coach do you think is better?
Yeah.
And then when I'm looking at which position coach I think would be better at developing that, it's probably going to be Frank Pollock on the O-line. So I think Sewell would be quicker here. Yeah,
I agree with you, but the issue is that's almost an argument of getting a less refined guy on day 2, like probably 2. If you don't pick, I think if they go Chase at 5, they'll go at least 2 offensive linemen on day 2. That's what I think. Mm-hmm. But to me, I would be more comfortable saying, hey, Frank, we know that you can take, let's just say Sam Cosmi is there at 38, or let's just say Tevin Jenkins somehow falls, or Elijah Vera Tucker somehow falls. I trust Frank Pollock to be able to address those better than if you were to get, say, like a second round wide receiver like I don't know who's going to, like a Terrence Marshall,
Dyami Brown,
you know, something like this, where they have really kind of elite traits, but they're not really there anywhere close to the level of like the top 3 or 4 guys, right? Whereas I see Elijah Vera Tucker could easily end up being a Pro Bowl guard in the league. Same with like a Cosme or Liam Eichenberg, you know what I mean? So that's kind of where I wanted to transition to the next topic of how big is the gap between, do you think, between the options at 38 for O-line versus the options at 38 if they wanted to go wait and go wide receiver at 38? Like, do you think there's a big because I'll just kind of show you. I went through PFF's simulator and I looked at average draft position. Right, this is the group of O linemen that I think you might be able to get at 38. Jenkins, Dylan Radins, Sam Cosme, Alex Leatherwood, Liam Eichenberg. Those 5 guys have a pretty good chance, at least, you know, maybe all of them, but at least a few of them of being there, right? And then on the wide receiver side, you've got Terrence Marshall, Rondale Moore, Kadarius Toney, Dyami Brown, and Elijah Moore. Those are kind of the group that's usually more available at that 38 spot. Do you think there's a large gap between those two groups of players as far as if you went, you know, Sewell at 5 and then you're looking for that wide receiver at 38? Or do you think that they're kind of that those group of players are pretty even and you shouldn't really be worried about it?
To me, I think as players, they're pretty even, but the problem comes with, I think that a lot of those wide receivers are going to be slot guys inside, and we already have possibly the best slot wide receiver in the league. So when you're looking at the round 1, round 2 draft combo strategy, I think it does lean, at least for year 1, more towards Chase O-line rather than Sewell and a wide receiver. Because you're really hoping that Terrace Marshall falls, I think. And then, I mean, Dyami Brown will probably be there. And I like what I've seen, even though I haven't really deep dived him or anything. But I do see that other people have said he's more of a round 3 type guy. And I guess for value, and I'm not going to say that he's definitely a round 2 because I haven't really watched him that much. Right. But
with Dyami Brown, I think he would be a steal at pick 69. Like an absolute steal. I really do. I don't think he'll be there though, but I think he's a reach at 38. So that's why he's weird to me, Dyami Brown. Now, if they were to trade back and into the mid second round and pick up an extra 3rd round pick or something like that, or an extra 4th, I think that could be a good move to look at for them. I think it's more likely that the value at 38 will be there at O-line than at wide receiver.
Especially because you didn't even mention, but I mean, Wyatt Davis, Creed Humphrey, and Landon Dickerson are all there too, usually. So
yeah, and when you go into the draft, you kind of after day 1, you know, everybody makes that first pick, and then you look at available, not just who's available at your next pick, but what's the package of players on day 2 you could be looking at. For example, we think that Creed Humphrey is going to be available at 69. Like, that opens it up. Okay, maybe now we can take a Christian Barmore if he slides at 38, right? Or we could take an edge player if he slides. Now, I've seen Gregory Rousseau every once in a while. Even every once in a while, you see Jason Owe down there. But I'm a big BPA guy. You know, take the best player that's there and just figure it out. Whenever I look at these 2 player groups, if you just want to talk about offensive line and wide receiver, I think both classes are very, very deep. But I also think that one is clearly deeper than the other one, especially when you look at the Bengals' need of needing to get younger and bolstering the interior offensive line. This is a really deep guard and center class. Ask you one thing, actually, and I don't know if you've been asked this or not, but it just kind of popped into my head as I was doing this. Do you think that the opt-outs for the season last year do you think it helped more players than it hurt? Because I went through the out of the top 37 players on PFF's big board, 13 of them didn't play last year, right? And you would think, if you would think they're, you know, I'll go through them real quick, but Sewell, Chase, Parsons, Slater, J.C. Horn, Rashad Bateman, Walker Little, Terrence Marshall, Caleb Farley, Tevin Jenkins, Asante Samuel, Gregory Rousseau, and Sam Cosme. None of those guys played last year. And they're all in the top 37 of PFF's big board. You would think you know, and that doesn't mean, by the way, just because PFF has them on the big board, that they're going to be, drafted at that spot. But I just don't see the opt-outs hurting anyone, and in a lot of cases maybe helping because they didn't have the opportunity to go out last year and regress at all.
Yeah, I do know Cosby played a little bit in 2020. I think he opted out in the middle of the year because I watched him in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of those guys, the thing is that it's just really understandable why they would opt out. They're already solidified as day 1, day 2 draft prospects. So the only thing they have to gain from playing, is like obviously team accomplishments, winning a national championship or something. And then other than that, not a lot for personal reasons, though. They could get hurt. They could. Back then, I don't think we got any real COVID cases spread through a game. But when that started, nobody knew.
Right.
So when they opted out before the season started, it was like, I don't want to catch this disease.
And why? And guaranteed these guys have, agents and whispering in their ears. There's no reason for you to play, bud. Like you're going to be a top. You're going to be a top 40 draft pick. There's no. You go out there and get hurt, or you go out there and shit the bed, on the field, and now everybody's afraid to draft you. I agree. I just think that it was probably more strategic than anything else. Like, I'm not convinced, for example, that Penei Sewell was afraid to get COVID or something. It's not. I don't think that was what was going on.
You look at Jamar Chase. I don't know if he would have had the same pro day if he had to practice for every game and everything instead of being able to just really get ready for his pro day.
Yeah.
So
and you've seen
so
many players this year just crushing pro days. Just the amount of 9+ RAS scores coming out of these pro days is outrageous. If you go look at the index and there's 20 RAS scores above 9.5, it's good lord. Either this is the most athletic draft class of all time or something's going on with these pro days.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit juiced. It really makes you worry a bit about guys like Jalen Mayfield and I'm trying to think who else had a bad, Patrick Jones, I think, had a bad pro day.
Yeah.
You see these pro days that are below 4. You're thinking, man, that's with a juice time?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a guy, last year, or a guy during the, juiced baseball era only hitting less than 20 home runs. What are you doing? You could hit pop-ups and hit 20 home runs. Last question, and I don't know how deep you've gone in your prospect rankings and looking through all this stuff, but what do you see the Bengals doing on day 3 when it comes to I know that, for example, we've seen or heard rumblings of Taron Jackson. They were at his pro day, right? And he's probably a day 3-ish type guy. They were at Milton Williams pro day, but this was before, it seemed like after they went and after Milton Williams had his pro day, lots of teams kind of were moving him up the board. So he may not be a day 3 guy anymore, but at the time he kind of was. So it does seem like they're really trying to mine day 3 of this draft to try to get contributors. What do you think about that?
I have actually no idea. I haven't looked at any day 3 guys.
That's the problem.
It's so hard to really deep dive these guys, and then I've done 15 or 16 guys, and I'm still in round 2. It's I'm not getting to round 3 because there's just so many guys in round 2 we can take. Yeah,
that's the problem. I do feel like it is a deep draft. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that we just didn't get to see these guys play last year. And the fact that so many guys that are going to get drafted in the top 2 rounds of this draft didn't play last year makes you question the level of competition of what you were watching when you go to try to evaluate guys that did play last year, right? So it's all kind of weird, and we're sitting here complaining about it, but we're not the ones getting paid to make these picks, so I'm not that worried about it,
Yeah, it really, there's those concerns, and then with offensive and defensive line, there's no silent counts because there are no fans. So you didn't have anybody you could see offensive linemen are always reacting off of the snap sound rather than trying to watch the ball.
Right.
So just little things like that are interesting, but
also it'd be easier to communicate over the headset. It's easier to just communicate in general on the field because you're not, that home field advantage isn't really there for most players or for most teams last year. Cool, man. Anything you want to plug?
Just check out my Twitter, Bengals_Sands.
It's on the screen. It's on the screen right now.
Yeah, it's I do draft prospects right now. I'm going to be doing more Bengals scheme stuff. Whoever we draft is going to get a whole scouting report. I haven't done the day 3 guys, so I'll just see whoever we draft and then do it.
Perfect, dude. Once you get that stuff ready, let's take a look because I'm trying to crank out. It's called Who Daily. I try to do a video every day. I don't always get to them, but
that's awesome amount of content that is.
Yeah, man, it's fun.
Yeah,
Having
I'd
a great
love to
time.
come back on.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for coming on. I've been Mike. This has been Who Daily. That's the other Mike. See ya.